See, Jesus' purpose isn't to make us happy. He didn't come to diversify our happiness portfolio to give us another way. Some would say even the most effective way to be happy. That's not why Jesus came. He came to give us life, and He came to give us life abundantly. And that abundant life isn't about fulfilling our dreams. It's about giving everything up for the kingdom, including our life. That's life. To give up our life for something greater than even our life. It's very un-Disney, isn't it? It comes with a bit of a gag reflex, doesn't it? When we hear this, don't we want to say something like, well, God doesn't want me to be unhappy, does He? And I think the answer is that we can say, based on Scripture, no, He doesn't. He does not want us to be unhappy. That is why at the very beginning, He told Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because He did not want us to be unhappy. But Adam and Eve did. And each one of us has, since then, in like manner, turned their back on God. And so that is why we are unhappy. And so that is why God became man. That is why the second person of the Trinity became man, so that He could die for us, to make a way for us, so that we could enter a kingdom that does not have death anymore. And that is the crux of the message. That is what we live for, is that this life isn't everything. That this life, to grasp a hold of this life, and only this life, is actually death. There is so much more. There is real life on the other side of this death. There is real life, and I'm not talking about a disembodied existence in heaven. I'm talking about the return of the King, when there is no more sin, suffering, death in this cesspool of sin. If you find yourself afraid when Jesus says that to be His follower, you must take up your cross and follow Him. If you find yourself afraid when you hear that we must be willing to lay down our life for Jesus, the only reason you would be afraid is if you still have hope. And the hope that you have is in the wrong thing. You see, if your hope is still in the money that you make, if your hope is still in the things that you have, if your hope is still in the vacations that you will be able to have, if your hope is still within the retirement that you're hoping for, that you'll be close to your extended family, or the food that you love, or something like that, if that's where your hope is, then of course, Jesus saying, taking up your cross and following Him will be scary to you. Those are beautiful gifts, don't get me wrong. Each one of those things is a beautiful gift, and if God has given them to you, I think you should accept them as a beautiful gift. Beautiful gifts are beautiful gifts. Beautiful gifts are terrible reasons to live your life. I think we have to understand that the greatest expression, the greatest thing that we can dream of at this point in eternal history is still tainted by death. The greatest thing that we can live for and we can dream of at this point, the greatest things and the gifts that we can hope for in this lifetime are still tainted by death. At the end of the day, there is something even greater than your greatest dreams to live for here, and that is a life that is without death. And I'm not talking about disembodied existence in heaven. I'm talking about a life fully embodied with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords ruling on the throne in a place where there is no sin, suffering, or death anymore. That is something worth living for. And to grasp a hold of that over these other things, that's life. That's life. To understand that that is greater than the greatest dreams here, that's life. And the thing about that is grasping a hold of that in many cases, whether literally or physically, where it actually will lead to your death here. And that, I believe, is what Jesus is saying. That is life. And so what can we change to better reflect God's big story, we can begin the process of dying to these useless, death-tainted dreams. And we can begin the process of latching a hold of and holding on for dear life, to death if necessary, that Jesus is the King, that He's returning, and at that point there will be no more death.